Ha-ba-ba, ha-ba-ba, ha-ba-ba. Good morning, everyone. Just getting it set up here a little bit. Let's see. What am I screen sharing? That is the question. Welcome, welcome. Just letting people in. So the chat should be available for you all as well. If you do want to use your microphone, you are unmuted for the lecture. Just have yourself muted until you have a question or we get to questions and answers. So that way, during the presentation, I can kind of spiel and then you can add in as needed. Hope you're all doing well today. Hopefully not too much anxiety. You had your coffee. Could somebody leave me a message in the chat room? Yes, thank you. I was unsure if my voice was coming out. Can everybody hear me clearly? Nothing cutting out? Okay, good. Now I do want to let you know that my internet has been updated and boosted, but if I do cut out at any time, feel free to let me know either in the chat room or through microphone, whatever's comfortable for you. Just stop me, be like, hey, Brandy, you cut out there. Can you explain what you just said? Nice to meet you too. Is anyone excited back to be back to school, to be learning? Oh my gosh. So I was telling my best friend, she lives up north and she was visiting for a while before COVID struck. But I was telling her I'm teaching a summer session and she's like, are you excited? Are you nervous? I said, I'm somewhat nervous because we've all been kind of in our own world for a while. Has anyone done, oh, I see somebody's done session A. Sorry to hear you're a little bit brain dead. Hopefully class will be a little bit of an opportunity to vent, but also to kind of exist in this like communal, I don't know even how to describe it, just like terror, so to speak. We're all pushing through this together in our own way, and we're all handling the best we can. I see some friends on the screen. Hello. Let's see. It's 11 o'clock. Hello, people. Hello, friends, new friends. By all means, you don't have to be on camera. You don't have to be on microphone. If you do have a microphone, do feel free to jump in if I cut out. If you have any questions before we get to kind of question and answer moment, I'm just letting folks in right now as we speak, peeking at the chat room. You know, I like The Office. I do have my critiques of it. And there are some episodes that I love better than others. I more so like moments of the show. So like the fire drill gives me so much life. The what is it? CPR scene, Staying Alive. That's just amazing. Jim and Pam. There's no other relationship that I can think I want except for the relationship within Jordan Peele's Us, the relationship in the new Watchmen series between Angela Abar and John, or Calvin as he goes by. Oh my God, the chili. Yes, the chili. So hopefully at this moment, you could tell that we have a lot of television and a lot of media to talk about. Oh my God, so many stories about The Office and just TV in general. But hello, welcome to English 1C, section B15. Session B, I didn't take note that some of us were in session A. I was not teaching session A. I took a little bit of break from spring quarter, which was of course a nightmare for all of us, especially apparently chemistry students and biology students. But now I'm back to session B. I hope you all have been well, doing the best you can at this moment in time. I do realize we're all in different circumstances, different places. And so as we go along through the next 5 weeks, by all means, let me know what I can do to help. If you need an extension, what information I could provide to you or what resources. And today I'll be going over the course text that we'll be reading. We do not have a solid textbook that you need to buy or rent. I'm going to be doing my best to, hold on, be taking information from Signs of Life. Oh, it's coming out by Solomon and Masick. This is the English 1C textbook for semiotics. And while you can buy this and rent this if you choose to, I think right now, just with everything going on, it might be more anxiety inducing to buy a textbook and have it come in the mail, but also you might need that money for food, for your family, for supplies. And so I'm going to do my best to teach information out of the textbook and give you examples, but by all means, let me know as soon as possible if something doesn't make sense to you, if you'd like more examples or resources, so I can provide those to you as soon as possible. How are we all doing though, just to get started, just to make sure we're all kind of part of the chat room here? Everyone doing okay? Okay so far? Again, by all means, let me know if something cuts out or if you need me to go back for whatever reason. Let's go ahead and get started. These lectures are recorded and they will be uploaded on YouTube. Yep, good, been busy with work and school. Yes, doing all right, good, good, great. All right, so these will be uploaded onto YouTube as soon as I get that figured out. I do have the PowerPoints uploaded onto iLearn. They'll be uploaded on a weekly basis. And so let's say you don't want to watch the video, you just want to look at the PowerPoint, those will be available to you on iLearn. But we'll be looking at iLearn just after a bit of the presentation. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and move to the first few slides. Let's see, come here. All right. So welcome everyone to English 1C as stated. Today we'll be covering introductions. I will be having you write an introduction post, nothing too stressful, I hope. As well, we'll be discussing the course, what we'll be talking about throughout the course, as well as disability studies and disability theory. But we'll then be getting into semiotics. And today we shouldn't be going the full time. We really should just be using this as a moment to get comfortable with the material, get an idea of kind of what the next 5 weeks are going to be like. As you'll note, I have an animal meme on my PowerPoints. I like to keep it comfortable, keep some humor going. And so do let me know if you want different style of memes. Hopefully I can bring you happy, playful animal memes. I love animals. If some of you looked at reviews on my courses, I teach taxidermy stuff. And so moving into the next slide, just a brief introduction of myself. My name is Brandy J. Lewis, she, her, hers. I know I go by a different den name on the course class listing. Brandy works for me. You don't have to call me professor or instructor, just straight up, hey, Brandy, I'm having trouble with class. Can you help me with this idea of semiotics or disability theory and kind of what you're talking about? That works for me. I am a PhD student in the Department of English. I am a third year going on into the later half of my degree. I just earned my master's not too long ago, and I emphasize in science fiction, horror, film, queer theory, and I love TV, I love media, and it's why I'm here, why I'm doing all of this in this current state of affairs we call reality as we know it. Degree-wise, education-wise, I graduated with a transfer degree from Mount San Antonio College or Mount SAC in 2015, transferred into UC Riverside in 2017 or 2015, got my bachelor's in 2017. So I was an English student then. At that point, I was terrified. We weren't in a pandemic, but I was still an anxious, nervous student. And then I took a year off and actually worked for Walt Disney World. I worked at Magic Kingdom, selling popcorn, ice cream bars, cotton candy, making cotton candy. And I did that about a year before I actually got accepted back in the PhD program at UC Riverside for English. And so I'm really happy to be here at this campus. For those of you who have never been on campus before, I love the campus. There's so much going on. There are great food places on and off campus, and the downtown area is pretty great if you like going antiquing and coffee shopping and all that good stuff. And so just looking at the chat room, sorry. So as far as the campus, I've looked at various resources that are available to us. The library is letting people in. One moment. There we go. Welcome, welcome. So the department has emailed me and let me know that the library is open for curbside service. If you choose to get books from the library, we can work that out together and figure out how that will work and what's safe for you. I will primarily be giving you digital texts online, so you may not need to go into the library. And I do recommend using the library database to find digital books. We have a plethora of digital books available to us. And you can actually request books that are not digital to perhaps be made digital. And so even though we're not able to go onto campus, oh, I love UCR, there's still a lot of resources available to you. Hobby-wise, I love games, I love coffee, chai tea, Thai tea, I love everything that could be drunk, basically. And I enjoy watching film, horror film, sci-fi film, action, thriller. Recently, I have messages here. Just want to make sure I get to those. Chat room, yes, coffee. I was debating getting Starbucks this morning and I was like, no, stop telling me on the news about COVID-19. I need my Starbucks. Recently, I just got into the video game Death Stranding and Carrion. And so that's kind of what I'm working through quarantine with. And Netflix, of course, is my life. We will be watching Jordan Peele's Us for this course. And so we'll be working out how to get access for you if you do not have access. But really, that's the only purchase you should be making for this course. Textbook-wise, you may not need to buy a textbook. So let's see. Next one, email is jlewi013@ucr.edu. I answer pretty quickly because it's attached to my cell phone, and I'm pretty much online all the time. Do give me some time to respond to you if you email later than 5 p.m. Sometimes I have answered people at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, maybe even midnight, but it really depends on the circumstances. It's not something you should necessarily expect all the time from me. As well, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we do have student office hours, quote unquote, from 1 to 2 via Zoom. But if you like Discord, if you like Skype, just let me know and we can do away with Zoom for that office appointment. That's where you can ask me for advice. You can ask questions and I can answer them. We can go over reading, or we can even brainstorm your paper, look at your sources, talk about possible ways of writing your paper. Really, those 20-minute appointments, they're by 20 minutes, by the way, they're there to give you the best advice that I can, individualized. So in class, I can answer a question for the whole class, but these student office appointments are really there for you as an individual. Plus, if you go by a different name, different pronouns, or if you need accommodations anyway, we can work that out through those office appointments in a more private setting. As well, that's where you can ask me about your grades, why one essay did better than another, what you can do to raise your grade. At the moment, I'm working out so that way if you didn't do as well, let's say on the first essay, you can revise and edit that paper and possibly raise the grade before the last 5 weeks or the end of the 5-week session. We can only do that with one paper though, due to time constraints, but I'm working that out and hopefully I should have that up in the syllabus within the next week or so. Any questions so far? Anything at all? My binge list, as far as Netflix, I've really watched Kipo, really gotten into, of course, Avatar, The Last Airbender. I want to start Star Trek Discovery, but I have to buy the disc for that. So I'm still working on my list, but movie-wise, I stick pretty close to horror and sci-fi. Played Assassin's Creed. It used to be my thing, but not anymore. Just so much time that goes into it. Any questions on the material like that I've gone over thus far? Get water. I've just gotten into PC. Console-wise, I'm waiting for the Xbox, whatever it's gonna be, but PC, I'm pretty strong with PC right now. So let's see, moving to the next slide. Discovery is good. Oh, I hope I enjoy it too. I only hear great things. And then let me make sure everyone's here. Okay, we're only missing one person. Let's see. Let me fix that so you can unmute yourself. Mute. Changing that. Where do I go for that? Leave it to Zoom to make me feel like I'm 60 years old. You should be able to unmute yourself by now. There we go. Do we have any questions from the voice while you're unmuted?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question. So when we make appointments, we email you, or are you gonna do like a Google Doc, or how will that work?
Great question. So let me open up this thingy. So let's go to iLearn. Can you all see iLearn? Is iLearn available to you all? Okay. Yes. So as far as appointments, I prefer that you email me so that way I can see that you have an appointment in mind and we could talk that out through email. However, if you go to iLearn, go to faculty info. It should be available to you. If it's not, let me know. You're gonna click it and it's gonna have some information about me. It's gonna have this kind of creepy Tinder photo of me. And you're gonna go to student office hours down here. When you click it, it's gonna take you to a Google Doc. And you should be able to add your name to the Google Doc. Say you want 1 o'clock at 1:20, you would type Berenice and last name. So I check it daily. And so I should see, okay, today I'll have from 1 to 1:20 Berenice. And then 1:40 to 2, I'll have James. But I do prefer you email me just so that way I know, hey, there's an appointment coming up and I could schedule you in. However, if these times don't work for you and say you want to meet with me on a Tuesday, or for whatever reason you want to meet with me later in the day, just email me at any time and we can put that in. Does that help?
Yes, thank you.
Of course. Let's see. All right. And so let's go to sharing back to the PowerPoint. Where you at, PowerPoint? Ooh, it wants to go to my iPhone. Funny. Resume slide. Okay, are we all back on the PowerPoint now? Okay. So as far as the course goes, the syllabus is on iLearn. You just look to the left, like where it said faculty info, and you should see syllabus. I have both the syllabus and the schedule as separate documents because I work on them as we go. If at any point I change something, I will let you know as soon as possible. And the dates that are included with the syllabus and schedule are there as like, okay, what's the latest date that Brandy has changed this information? If anything, more so, I'll be prone to change the schedule, but I still kind of figuring out word count on the essays simply because A, I recognize you guys need to learn how to write academically, but also B, we're in a kind of unheard of global catastrophe of the last 100 years or so. And so I want to make sure you develop your skills, but also recognize that we might not have the same amount of time in a 10-week quarter to write a 10 and 12, 15-page paper. So maybe 8 pages will be enough, or 7 pages. And so we do have 3 essays. The scary one that's going to be like pretty quick turnaround is the second essay, but we're going to be analyzing a commercial. I did give you suggested commercials, so you can pick which one out of the assignment you'd like, but you can pick your own if you so choose to. Then the second paper is going to be analyzing a short film. These can be up to like 7 minutes, 8 minutes long. I did list some suggestions as well. So like 2 of the Disney Pixar shorts that are on Disney Plus are available to you. I think they're great and they allow us to kind of critique or understand an idea of disability and how disability is presented to us at this time. And then our final essay will be Jordan Peele's Us. And so by that point, we should have a plethora of secondary materials, so articles, book chapters that we can utilize to analyze the film, but also we should have enough lecture time to really take it on and discuss it, like what does the film do in as far as race and class and disability, and why are the clones in some way shown lesser than the non-clones, so to speak. The final exam is actually not this cumulative exam or this like in-class writing. It's only 750 word kind of metacognitive reflection. Basically, you discuss your experience in the course, the materials you looked at, and you want to also discuss disability studies itself. What did you learn about disability studies? What does that allow for us to think about? But also, what are some limitations and where might future work come out of? So like, let's say, for instance, you say disability studies is still really white and really masculine. So there needs to be more conversations on how to bring critical race theory into disability studies. That's great. And the final exam, there's no, I mean, turn it in by the last day, but you could start working on it midway through the quarter just to kind of relax and lessen up that strain on yourself. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions so far on the essays, the syllabus, or the final? Looking at chat. Okay, I see you have one question. Good question. The commercials can be found on YouTube. They could be found on Hulu, let's say. Sometimes Hulu plays commercials and then you can go search for those on YouTube, but you don't have to like find some hidden gem that you can only find on a database. The databases may be able to help you, and I'll bring those resources to you within the next couple of weeks. But YouTube will suffice, and I'll show you how to cite YouTube videos once we get to that. We should be covering structure on Thursday, and then Monday we'll be discussing citations and how to go about that. Does that help? You're welcome. All right. Any other questions on the essays, the final exam? All right, so I'm gonna take that as we're good for now. So readings and assignments will be due the day they are listed on the schedule. So tomorrow, we won't be having class. That'll be a time for you to read kind of what's due on Wednesday, watch a commercial, and write about it a little bit. We'll get to that towards the end of today's lecture. But for Wednesday, you'll have 1 or 2 readings due, and it'll be listed under Wednesday on the schedule. And so anything that's listed on, let's say Thursday, you have a reading listed. You'll be expected to have done that reading by Thursday, so we can discuss it in class. No worries on being late. It happens, and these lectures are recorded. So by any means, if you're not able to make it, just let me know. If you're late because PC troubles, just come in when you can. Office hours, again, that'll be under faculty info. And so it'll be under the top left. And if you need to, I can move the Word document to course materials, or Google document to course materials to make it a little easier. So getting back to the PowerPoint really quickly. Of course. So lectures will predominantly be discussion. And so that could be done through chat, that could be done through voice. I don't require you to do video simply because for me, someone who's transgender or transgender identifying, it could be very dysphoric having myself on camera at times. And I know for others, we might not have access to cameras. And so discussions will predominantly be done in whatever way possible. And by all means, if you can't make it to class, just watch the lecture when able to, and you can email peers, email me questions. Today, when we do an introduction post on iLearn under discussions, I'll show you where to go for that. You can list, hey, I'd love to work with people in biology or in English or in chemistry. So that way you can start building your own little community here in the class. Let's see, breakout rooms, I don't expect to host those. Those could be really, for some traumatic, for some just stressful. Let's say, for instance, somebody didn't do the reading or the whole group didn't do the reading. And so you guys are lost and you'd rather kind of hear what others have to say. And so I'll try not to do breakout groups, but if you feel that you want to try it at least once for shits and giggles, we can go ahead and try that. Again, if you miss lecture, recordings will be posted on YouTube, hopefully within the same day. Late policy. And so this is one of the hardest decisions I've had to make in as far as teaching these courses. Usually with late policies, I give you an extra day or two to turn something in if you can't make that deadline, no questions asked. But because we're a 5-week course and 5-week session, I do have to put that penalty there just to make sure we get everything done and move on to the next piece. Now, if you do need an extension for whatever reason, let's say you get sick, God forbid somebody in your family or yourself gets COVID-19, or your internet is acting up, or you can't get Wi-Fi access, email me as soon as possible and we can work that out. I'm perfectly fine with giving extensions and we can discuss that as necessary. But the last thing that I want to happen is for you to be held back because of an extension. And then that just kind of mucks everything up. 5 weeks is really intense, particularly for a critical writing course. And so just communicate with me and let me know what's going on. And if you need an extra day or two to turn something in. But with that said, each day that an essay is due, each day that an essay is late, it'll get 1/3 of a grade off. So if it earned an A+, like this is astounding, but you turned it in 3 days late. So one day is an A, second day is an A-, third day is a B+. That's how the 1/3 of a grade works. But also smaller assignments, they're really just turned in for participation and for me to give you feedback on your writing. And so if you miss those, you miss the grade opportunity, which won't amount to much, but you'll also miss the opportunity to give feedback on your writing. Does that make sense to everyone? Opening up the chat again. Does that sound fair for now? Like 5 weeks scary time, so we really need to be kind of put on the line here, and then smaller assignments, more so for feedback. Does that work out for everyone? So there is a suggestion here or opportunity for a group meet group so we can work together. My only concern for that is you want to make sure there's a limit beyond how much you help each other. I won't get too much into it here because it's in the syllabus and you're expected to read through the syllabus before the next class. But in the section on plagiarism, they want to warn you against working with each other too much, if that makes sense, like giving each other ideas on writing the essays and such. Just be careful with that. But as far as like discussing ideas like the theory and the secondary sources, or I don't get what's going on in Jordan Peele's Us, I think he's great, but I'm lost. That might work out. Just a little warning. Any questions so far on this PowerPoint slide? I've covered quite a bit of things so far. As far as the assignments in the class, what's important for me is you get feedback, you get a chance to work on your writing and ask me questions, and you feel comfortable kind of learning through the process and making changes as necessary. Okay, I'm taking no questions so far as a sign, but if, again, at any point, just stop me. Instructor on the edge. All right, so some general advice for the course. See me ahead of time and notify me if you have a question, concern, if you need accommodations in some way. In doing a disability studies course, we have to recognize that some disabilities are not recognized by accommodations on campus, and some may take a lengthier process. And so if you need more access to recorded lectures, let me know. I can provide that easily. If you need, let's say, for instance, I don't know, the PowerPoint ahead of time, or you can't get access to it, just let me know and I could do what I can. But as far as like having a note taker and things like that, I have to go through the campus. We have to go through accommodations for that. But let me know as soon as possible if you have any questions or concerns. As far as having trouble writing, email me for an appointment. You could send me a Google Doc and say, hey, Brandy, this is my paragraph or this is my thesis. I'm struggling on it. Do you have any questions about it? Do you have any advice? I'm perfectly fine and open to doing that. As well, revisions, edits, they're kind of hectic and they're kind of scary. And so if you do get lost on where to revise something, I could always pose a suggestion to you like, hey, you really analyze the film really well, but you don't spend a lot of time with your secondary sources, your let's say academic journal stuff. Let's look at that a little bit deeper. Do you have any concerns with that? Are you struggling? As well, distance learning is hard. I taught spring quarter through recorded lectures, and I am willing to record lectures in the event that something goes wrong. But by all means, while I have to follow the UWP's policy and as far as grading and such, just again, contact me and we could see what we can do as far as extensions and deeper explanations on something. Before Wednesday, please review the syllabus, do the reading homework. By all means, take all the readings in bite-sized pieces. So let's say for Thursday, you might have a longer reading. Read a little bit today, or for Wednesday, do half of the reading today, and then tomorrow, do the other half. A lot of this course is not going to be reading like fiction, short stories. It's going to be looking at commercials, short films, Jordan Peele's Us, and thinking about what is presented to us and what do we think about when we look at these images. And so do your best with the material. If you do struggle with it, email me, ask your peers, do the group me. But also in lecture, I'm going to have an opportunity for you to say, hey, I and 3 of my peers don't get this. I'm lost, they are lost. Can you go over this? And we could do an about face and really just dig into that a little bit deeper before getting into that day's lecture. Does that make sense? Checking time. Is everybody okay so far? I do tend to ramble and lose myself because of distance learning? Okay. Yes, someone's following. Great. So by all means, email me. Email is the best place to get in contact with me. But also, if you want to do a voice call, Skype, Zoom, Discord, just let me know. Textbooks, as I said, we will not be having a main textbook. We do have a textbook usually taught with English 1C called Signs of Life by Solomon and Masick, the 9th edition. However, I'm not requiring you to buy it simply because I'll lecture material from the textbook. And getting packages in the mail is kind of like living in Chernobyl, where we have to clean off the packages and worry about COVID-19. At least for me, I feel very anxious about getting things delivered to me right now. And so I don't want to put stress on you. Plus also you may need the money for food, for materials, supplies of internet access. And so if you do get lost on my lectures on semiotics and you want me to explain something a different way, just let me know. All readings that we will be doing will be done through PDFs as well as links to JSTOR. JSTOR is a great resource right now on UCR's library database section. And all the readings will really be provided from JSTOR and PDFs. If you go, actually, let me show you here. New share. We're gonna go to iLearn again. If you go to course materials, you're gonna see the weeks listed out. The PowerPoints are up here. If you need the rubric and for them from the UWP to see how I'm grading your essays, it's right here. It's a PDF. It explains everything and as far as grades. However, if you go to, let's say, week 1, so the first reading, Science of Life in the High School Classroom on semiotics, that's there. And then we have the commercial from YouTube that we'll be watching for Wednesday from St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And then we also have Enabling Whom by Minnick. I do have a sample paragraph that's going to go up within the next day or so, but with the first writing assignment, I kind of want to see what you guys do first. And then afterwards, that example or sample is going to be available to you to look at in as far as like structure, organization. And so if at any point you need anything for the class, like your homework, go to course materials on iLearn. Let's say, let's go to week 3. The readings are all there. Let's go to week 5. The readings are all there. Some readings might change, and so I'll let you know as soon as possible when that happens. But everything there is listed. I do have the essay prompts available, at least the first one right now. The other 2 will be available as we move forward. And then, of course, discussions. We have the introduction discussion posts available. Going back to PowerPoint. All right. Nope, go back. Go back. All right. So let's see. All right. So textbook wise, the only thing you should have to buy for this class, like hands down, is Jordan Peele's Us. You can rent it. You can buy it on Amazon Prime. If you have HBO Max like I do, it was up there for a while and it might still be up there. However, that will be our main text that we'll be like purchasing for this class. The Science of Life textbook, you can purchase it if you want it. Just email me and let me know. It's really useful for the topic of semiotics in this class. But I'll be lecturing on it, and I just want to make it as accessible as possible. So don't feel you need to go out and buy that. So generally within lectures, I'll give a housekeeping screen where we just cover bases on everything that maybe we've done so far, review, PowerPoint lecture. And so just opening up the floor right now, does anybody have any questions, whether through the chat room or through microphone, about what I've gone over? So that could be syllabus, readings, textbooks, assignments, grading, extensions. Have some water. Just a couple more seconds in case. Silence is golden, but if you do have a question, let me know. Do you like my cat? That's me every day. That's me covered in paperwork. So I'm going to move to the next slide. If you are taking notes, let's go ahead and start taking notes here. This is where we get into kind of the meat of today's lecture before we finish for today. I do have pets. I have a tailless cat named Raven. She's a black cat. I had to buy her a bell collar because she's the night. She is literally a silent avenger. And so sometimes I might pick her up and hold her in front of the camera just so you can see her. That's the only pet I have, alas. And so getting into our course focus for the next 5 weeks, we'll actually be looking at what is called disability studies. And disability studies has really developed within the last 15 to 20 years as a result of discussion of feminism within college, civil rights, queer LGBTQIA discourse. And really what we'll be focusing on is how is disability projected to us or identified to us in the media that we consume? How do wheelchairs, crutches, even depictions of monsters with facial deformities or body deformities, how do they create a mythology of who or what disabled citizens look like, or disembodied citizens sometimes? We'll also be thinking about what are the structures that surround us that objectify certain bodies, certain identities. Definitely disability studies is looking at how gender, how racial categories, and how socioeconomic classes disable people from resources or actualizing structures, if that makes sense. So you could think about how is it that, let's say right now, COVID-19, how is COVID-19 revealing the failure of our medical system while also disabling people who have been disabled for generations of time? And I'm particularly talking about migrant workers, Latinos, African Americans, and Black scholars, and just anybody who has been showcased as the other has been now disabled thrice-wise, if that makes sense, by COVID-19. And so we want to rethink disability and the structuring of disability and ability as a status that society places on certain embodiments, certain identities, certain appearances in order to construct a white supremacist nation. Does that make sense? Do we have any questions about that? We pretty clear so far. So we're looking at how disability is not only an identity or utilized as an identity, but it's a construct that's constructed throughout social encounters, through cultural encounters, through media, film, TV, music, YouTube, and vloggers, let's say. And so our text will predominantly be focusing on disability and the concept of disability. And of course, we have Sammy Schock here with a quotation of how disability studies is the interdisciplinary, just multiple disciplines coming together to investigate how disability is a socially constructed phenomenon. Give you a moment to kind of take notes. Somebody. All right. So moving to, oh, go ahead. Hello. Okay. So moving to the next slide here. Let's see. And so our texts will be coming from different books on disability studies. We have Body Minds Reimagined by Sammy Schock. We have Narrative Prosthesis, which looks at like Darth Vader in Star Wars or Scar in The Lion King, and how disability is utilized to convey an idea of evilness or a lack of empathy or humanity. We also have crypt theory by Robert McClure, and he looks at how the idea of crypt theory is to disable disability and what it means, and how disability can be something you can take up in your own daily lives as a tool of resistance against white supremacist able-bodied culture. Then there's the right to name, which kind of goes into the idea of how certain cultures and ideas disable people because of their race, because of their class, their age, their gender, or being transgender, let's say, how that could be disabling for some people simply because of the social structures intact. We will go into other readings, of course, some simpler than others, some a little bit trickier, but by all means, you have me via email to work through this reading list with. You have your peers, and I will try not to give you something that might be too difficult for an introduction level course. The goals of reading these texts really are to get an idea of how the scholars look at film and media and how they analyze it, but as well, how the paragraphs, how the arguments are structured, and how they can really help us develop our own style. Sadly to say, a lot of academic writing is white, is colonial, is sexist, is materialist, is racist. And so while I am going to be giving you guys some instruction on how to make your work more academic, we also want to think about how our writing could be a visual working through of theory and process, if that makes sense. So I will be teaching you about MLA citation formatting, as well as why we would use third person point of view. So like they, she, he versus first person point of view, I, me, we, us. But I'm not really going to critique you or grade you down if you choose to use a little bit of first person language in your own writing, simply because the scholars here use first person language within their own writing as well. Any questions about these texts, secondary materials? Doing okay so far? We're almost here at the end. Okay. So this is the heavy hitter for today. The course is focused on what is known as semiotics, or the study of cultural science and imagery within society. And so whenever you watch a TV show, whenever you go to Starbucks, oh my God, I miss Starbucks. Whenever you go to Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf, you are shown cultural images, signs, and information without even noticing it. And these signs create cultural mythology, or what we call ideology. And so think about like a Barbie doll. Not only is a Barbie doll an object, a thing, but it conveys the idea of femininity. It conveys childhood, adolescence. It conveys the idea of what capitalism in the West is interested in. And let's say the able-bodied, perfectly sculpted female imaginary, but also the white body, the white female body, blonde haired, light skinned, blue eyed. And so another sign or icon for us is the Starbucks cup. The Starbucks cup is typically shown within images of upper middle class. I laughed so hard in that Game of Thrones era where someone's like, there's a Starbucks cup on Khaleesi's table. I'm like, Khaleesi would have a Starbucks cup. Like, why are we so shocked about this? Starbucks is about capital, is about success, is about white success, predominantly speaking, within the upper Midwest, which has a history of colonial taking of land from indigenous populations. And so really with semiotics, you're looking at an object or a sign, as we call it, and how it's connected to other things in relationship. Does that make sense? Another example could be a Toyota truck. For some, a Toyota truck is just a truck. Yet in advertisements, we often see it under the narration of a white Western American. We see it trudging over the mountains. And so this truck gets made into a sign of white frontier masculinity in modern day America. And so some signs or icons can actually be overdetermined. They can have connotations or meanings, as we call it, that are just, there are so many ideas that are listed under this icon or sign. So if you look at the police officer uniform, there are so many meanings or connotations, as we call it, under that sign or image. But oftentimes people just simply look at what a sign denotes or a denotation. A denotation is the simplistic on the surface meaning. If I looked at a police officer uniform, people would tell me it's just an officer uniform. Yet at this moment in history, it's black on it's black violence, it's white on black violence, it's police brutality, it's able-bodied white supremacy. It's so many, yeah, we won't go into it yet. So what we want to think about is, what is the sign on the surface level? And then what does the sign communicate? Or what does it connote or connotate, whatever word form that is. And so we would do this through the process of abduction, kind of figuring out what does the sign suggest to us in this current moment. Once we get to the first commercial this week, we'll look at how disability suggests something through the way the music is played, through the way that the actors are performing. And so you might already be doing this work, but not realizing it. It happens on a daily basis. It happens, excuse me, sometimes easier in certain cases than others. But I'm really interested in what is the sign in connection to its system. And so disability, what is the wheelchair in connection to the able-bodied American playing basketball? Is it an injury? Is it a deformity? Is it make somebody less than human? And how do we get those messages? Do we have any questions on that? Yes, we have a question. Nope. Stupid questions are not stupid. Stupid comes from the idea of an able-bodied, perfect human being that is like impossible to reach. So what is your question? Okay, so the reason I put disability in brackets going back is from Sami Schock. So she actually lists disability in parentheses or brackets, and it's a great question because she wants us to understand that the idea of ability to be able to do something relies on someone having a disability, that someone in culture, society, our neighborhood is different from us and is incapable of doing something. And so if you wanted to take a critical race spin to this, in order for there to be a white Western subject, there has to be a Black person. There has to be someone from Southeast Asia in order to signify whiteness. And that's what white supremacy likes to obscure or create, is the idea that race is an actual thing when really it's socially constructed by the way white supremacy constructs it. And so it works in the same way with disability, in that in order for there to be disability, we have to have someone who is able-bodied versus somebody who has a disablement. And of course, disablement gets constructed in many ways. Later this week, I'll be discussing the historical creation of disability. And it's predominantly tied to industrialization and this question of who is able to do something and make capital versus who is not able to do something. Does that answer your question? Or does it bring up more questions now? Yeah, when you think about it, think about, let's say for instance, in the scheme of horror. So if you've ever heard of the film The Green Inferno, the name of the director escapes me, but it's about these college students who go to South America thinking, we're going to help stop the deforestation within South America, and we're going to save these indigenous people. And yet their plane crashes and they end up being consumed by the indigenous people. And these indigenous tribal members are depicted as grotesque, as non-human. They're consuming flesh, and it's very troubling. And what you get is this predicament in which native tribalism is depicted as this violent identity versus this upper middle class, wealthy, white, predominantly speaking, culture that comes from the Northwest down into South America. But in order for this to happen, the image of the horrifying native has to be constructed in order for us to feel bad for the people who look like us, if that makes sense, or arguably looks and thinks like us. I watched that years ago in theaters, and I want my money back. And so just to finalize on semiotics, think about your TV shows, your commercials, your films, your music videos, and what they convey to you. What does it mean to see Hillary Clinton on stage? Yes, it's great to have a female politician, but what does it mean that she utilizes this position predominantly for a white liberalist population? What does it mean that, yes, disability is getting more inclusion narratives within media widely, but then we have to question, what kind of inclusion narratives are we taking? Are we emphasizing disability as something that is what it is, or are we discussing how disability is a social construct that we need to rethink in some way or form? So here are some examples of signs. We have two fancy houses, one on the left and one on the right. I want to ask you, what are some connotations or meanings that we get out of these houses just by looking at them? What do we think about when we say we look at the house on the left? What comes to mind versus the house on the right?
For the first picture, I see like a white neighborhood or like a wealthy family.
Where would you get that from? You're on the right track, but how do you think that idea comes about? Is it just randomly there, or do you think it's tied to the way we showcase these houses within culture?
Yeah, it's how it's like showcased like in movies or like TV shows. It's like usually like a white family, a wealthy white
Yeah,
family.
exactly. So on the left, we have this house that it's beautiful. It has a really nice porch. I know for a fact my family would want to own it. However, within culture, we often see these homes around white neighborhoods, white families, wealthy upper middle class. And so when we see this, we get an idea of white opulence. Whereas on the right, we have ideas of lower income, struggling within society for financial support, but also we get on the left the American dream versus on the right, as somebody says in the chat, a crack house, realistically. And it's because of the way that culture has mediated these two signs to us. And so the homes, while on a denotative level, are homes, they're houses. The one on the right could look as good as the one on the left. They, through connotation, they suggest that on the left, certain people can only afford this house, whereas on the right, certain people can only afford this house. And do we have any films maybe where signs like this come up? Very good, very good. On the left, as we have here in the chat room, on the left, we get this kind of upward looking position as far as our gaze on the house. And so there's kind of this like the Lion King, Pride of Rock, of like, oh, looking up at the grandeur of the house. Whereas on the right, we have this flat, kind of flush-faced image of the houses or the homes. And really, they're just kind of objectified as less than, as they're just another thing in another neighborhood. One of the films that I just realized has some of the same imagery is actually Jordan Peele's Get Out. So when Chris goes to his girlfriend's house, it's beautiful, and it actually brings up a haunting of the colonial what is it? It brings up the imagining of antebellum slavery with the housekeepers, the gardener, and the homemaker, and then as well the rarity or scarcity of racial minorities within the home. But also when you look at Chris's apartment, there's that difference between the urban space of the Black male American versus the home of the white American family. And so Jordan Peele, I think, is really working with that and trying to critique how we think of homes as part of histories of genocide, of imperialism, but also of gentrification, and how African Americans were moved to the cities for safety because of slavery and the escape from slavery. Another part right here, or point brought up, the lighting and the colors of the picture. So on the left, very warm, very comforting. Where on the right, very cold, very institutional. Do we have any questions about any of this and how signs operate within culture? Are we okay so far? I actually have not seen that, Estrella, but that definitely sounds like, yep, conveys kind of similar things. And it's interesting there with your point on how LGBTQIA identities is lumped up with disability and mental illness, and how mental illness and LGBTQIA identities become objects of, what's the term, of social horror, social spectacle. Like if you watch Maori or Jerry Springer, that's all about spectacle, and a lot of semiotic analysis can be done on Jerry Springer alone, who is predominantly on the show, what socioeconomic classes are on the show, and Jerry Springer himself, he's a white man taking control of the lower class and their situations. Oh, no worries on that. So I'm going to move to the next slide here. So the leading arguments for the course. As you can see on the right, we have a lot of examples of disability and how disability is utilized within horror, within fantasy and sci-fi. If you have not read Martin's book, Birdwing, it does something interesting while other things problematic, but that's kind of what we want to figure out with this course is, how is disability a cultural construction? How is it that it brings up ideas of who is the human and who is non-human? But also, how are race, gender, sexuality, and the human identity entangled with this idea of ability and disability? And then I'll get to the chat in a moment. As well, we want to think about how, especially later in the course, how disability is utilized to create ideas of non-humanity and monstrosity and how they get represented. And so we'll be talking about Jordan Peele's Us and how the clones are shown to have disabilities in some way or form. And we have to ask, does that do good work? Does that do bad work? Does that make us think about disability? When we think about Adelaide and Red did not have a disability, and yet her vocal cords were crushed, and now she speaks with that kind of like grounded, throaty voice. And so how is disability then operating in order to convey who is really the monster within the film? As well, we want to think about how disability fails to account for how the society, its structures disable us. How, yes, we could add a bicycle ramp. Yes, we could add an elevator, but really what's not happening are the discussions of the structures, the socioeconomic structures of disability and how we may need to change education. Capitalism definitely needs to change. If you take note of the John Lewis today, when they walked John across the bridge, Selma Bridge, somebody on the Today Show commented that this moment is romantic to the work that John Lewis did, but it really doesn't take care of the racist structures that are still underpinning why he crossed that bridge in the first place. And so in the same way, we're going to be looking at how disability, yes, we could have more inclusion narratives take place, but what does it mean that inclusion only builds towards a certain image while also not really changing the structures that make someone disabled in the first place? And then finally, we'll be thinking about how the language of spectrum, while it's useful for those within the autistic community and with those who are neurodivergent as such as myself, while it's useful as a term, it really is based off of social images or social imaginary of disablement and disembodiment. So like you have one locus on one image on the end or one sign of the perfect able-bodied human, predominantly white, but on the leftmost of the scale you have this other image that's very violent and very destructive. And so we want to rethink everything that there is possible to disability within the next 5 weeks, but of course we're not going to take everything on. Does that make sense? Do we have any questions about that? Any concerns? We doing okay? Checking time. And then just to touch on some of the ideas in the chat room, The Greatest Showman does do a lot with disability and looking at how certain qualities are supported within society. I would even press that The Greatest Showman, while it does have that great anthem, This Is Me, there it is. While it has that great rock anthem and ballad, really Broadway-esque on difference, how difference should be taken up as a form of resistance, we want to question whether or not disability then is, while it's being taken up as a sign of resistance, does it actually critique the structures of the freak show or of the way in which disability becomes monetized within society and culture? And then let's see, I think a lot of that connection comes from LGBT plus issues. And yes, we do have to think about how LGBTQIA issues have been medicalized and how the queer body, both mind and body, has been utilized for eugenics, just as race has, and other really troubling stigmas throughout history. It seems like we're doing okay. Let's go on and move to the next slide. Oh, my kitty's here. So, hi, baby. So for homework for tomorrow into Wednesday, tomorrow we don't have class. I know. I chose that day. My cat is talking to us. However, I do want you to write a couple of things for me. So do tomorrow, by tomorrow evening, there's writing assignment 1. I want you to watch the commercial and think about the commercial listed for week 1 and think about how disability is shown to us and what it kind of imagines. But also I want you to go on to iLearn and introduce yourself, introduce your major, your fields, your interests, some of your anxieties, maybe concerns with the course or just the 5 weeks. So that way we can all build a little community together. As far as Wednesday, try to complete the readings when you can. If you have trouble with that, by all means, come into class. Let us know kind of where did you have trouble with the reading? What are some questions you may have? And we'll definitely use that to build up our entry into disability studies. And as well, By tomorrow night, there will be a sample paragraph that will open up on iLearn. I will be putting a submission form on iLearn for the first assignment, and I'll explain that in an email. But with that said, we're done for today. Really, we're ending a little bit early simply because there's no chance for a break today and it's quick information. Wednesday, we will have the chance for a break during class as well. We will be going deeper into this material. Do we have any final questions before we leave off? Office hours are available if you choose to utilize them or if you need them. So for the assignment, I want you to structure it as best as you can in MLA format, like a typical writing assignment. If you haven't done a writing assignment before, let me get you an example. Let's see. Go to iLearn. That is a great point. And so if you go to course materials, course and general resources, sorry, there's a website here called MLA General Format, Purdue OWL. And I want you to look at, let's see, MLA site and sample paper right here. Oh, actually, never mind, going back. This explains the general format here when you click the link on iLearn, and it shows an example. For tomorrow and Wednesday, the writing assignment is not a full essay. It only requires the topic sentence and it's one paragraph. Try not to think too much into it. Just try to structure it like a body paragraph. So topic sentence. And the commercial for Shriners Hospital entitled The Boardroom, the directors and creators imagine disability as blank, and then give an example and explain that example. Does that help out, Nancy? Any other questions before we go? Good question. So the commercial we're writing about, if you go under course materials on iLearn, week 1, it's the, let me just make sure. Oh, so I have to change the title, but it's The Boardroom. So I'm going to change the title here. This is the commercial we'll be watching and then discussing for Wednesday. You as well will be writing about this for Tuesday. Submit. There we go. And then, oh, come on, I want to open up my chat. Yes, so it's the same one as this on the syllabus. The writing assignment for us is actually listed here on, if you go to course materials, PowerPoints, day 1, and you open up the PowerPoint, you can actually read the assignment here under the PowerPoint slide. Does that help? Okay. As well, if you do want to check out the first essay, go to assignments, essay prompts, and you have the first essay available to you. It's going to open up as a Word document or whatever is available to you, but that'll give you enough time to start thinking about the first essay and think about what commercials you want to analyze, what are some signs you've seen within culture and society. Yes, so I will be putting up an assignment portal after class, so that way you can submit it whenever it's finished. You don't have to have it done by 5 p.m. on Tuesday or tomorrow night. You could do it as soon as possible, but do take some time to make it as best you can, as strong as you can, sorry. So that way I can really guide you on how to structure or work with your writing before we turn in the first essay. All right. So with that said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to email me. As said, I answer emails pretty quickly. It goes right to my phone, and I'm really looking forward to meeting with you all in some way or form this quarter. Please go on to discussions when you get the chance, maybe after this. Introduce yourself. I did put an example introduction introducing myself, and feel free to comment on each other's introductions. Get to know each other. I definitely recommend you find a buddy for this class to say, hey, did you get the reading this week? I didn't understand it. But also to kind of build up that community and say, hey, I need somebody to read my essay and give me some advice, some criticism. Can you look over my essay for me? Definitely 5 weeks is a really short time. And so we want to get this community as strong as possible. Before we go, however, do you guys want to see my cat? Oh, she left. Raven. Oh, okay. Another time. I'm sorry. She's very fickle like that. But I will see you all Wednesday. Class will operate same day every day. I will talk to you later. Have fun, guys. And if you do have stress, anxiety with the class, let me know as soon as possible.
Bye. Have a good day.
You too. Bye. Oh, quickly, this will be uploaded online. I will send you an email when that is done.